Richard Williams. You've probably heard the name before. He unfortunately passed away last year, but he will remain a legend throughout the animation industry for centuries to come. His most famous work was on the notorious Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but he also did the Snowman animated short, Raggedy Ann and Andy, and his most essential masterclass, The Animator's Survival Kit. Every animation student's go-to for perfecting their craft. One of his most infamous projects was The Thief and the Cobbler. This film went through a 30-year production starting in 1964 and releasing in 1992. Wait, that would make it 28 years. Who's counting? But back when it started, it was actually under a different title, The Tales of Mullah Nasruddin, which were books written by Idries Shah and illustrated by Williams himself. By 1972, he and his team had 3 hours worth of animation, but no real story structure to accompany it. It was more of an anthology movie of sorts. Around this point, Williams was under the impression that the producer of his film, Omar Shah, was embezzling money from the studio for his own purposes. I don't know if that's actually true, but regardless, Williams had an unfortunate falling out with the Shah family, and the film had to be completely overhauled. So, with a new producer, Williams changed the names of the characters and most of the story and reworked it into The Thief and the Cobbler. The goal was to make an animation epic, and he was convinced that this would be his magnum opus. But in 1974, a recession forced the studio to focus primarily on various TV, commercial, and feature film assignments, leaving The Thief and the Cobbler to be worked on as a side project.
I always did my personal work while I was doing commercial work to get the money to do my personal work. So instead of going out and buying a yacht or whatever, or getting drunk on it, I would go back to work and do my personal work, because that's the reason I'm doing it. I mean, I wouldn't choose to spend my life. I think I've made over 2,500 commercials or worked on. Well, that wouldn't be my choice of a life career, or doing fancy wrappings for feature films or making little shorts. I mean, naturally, you want to practice your craft. Well, the money comes from the commercial activities.
As the years went on, the movie became more and more ambitious, and when other directors such as Spielberg and Zemeckis caught a glimpse of Williams's raw talent, he was commissioned to work on other, more successful projects. So The Thief and the Cobbler was kinda in production limbo at this point, but finally, in 1989, after the success of Roger Rabbit, Williams and Warner Brothers negotiated a funding and distribution deal for The Thief and the Cobbler. Then Warner Brothers animators filled in the blanks of the animation, got horrible new voiceovers from Matthew Broderick and Jonathan Winters, and hastily released it in 1992. And it was shit! The Warner Brothers Miramax edit of this film is complete fucking garbage. However, the recobbled cut, which restored the original unfinished footage and storyboards to make the movie feel more complete, is a lot better and gives a much clearer idea of what Williams was aiming to accomplish. However, I'm sad to say that the story and character work here is very trite and simple. Not as bad as this shit, but unfortunately, I can't say that the recobbled cut is the masterpiece Williams hoped to make. So why am I telling you all of this? Because I need to stress that Richard Williams dedicated most of his life trying to make his vision come to fruition, only for it to be completely demolished. He is in every sense of the word a perfectionist. And as much as that drive made his work as legendary as it is, it was also the biggest thing holding him back. His ambition outweighed his resources when it came to his own personal projects. When he did other projects for clients and working under tight schedules, he made some iconic fucking stuff. Left to his own devices, he made absolutely exceptional animation, but with very little emotional substance to it. And this leads me to his best and final film, Prologue. Jesus. This was a 2015 short film that, as the title implies, was meant to be the first in a series of animated art pieces. It's an adaptation of Lysistrata, a Greek play where women withhold sex from their spouses to stop a brewing war. But Williams had it under the working title, Will I Live to Finish This? Obviously though, destiny dashed his dreams once again, and he never finished the whole project. But more on that later. The draftsmanship on display here is simply perfect. He was always adamant about animating on ones instead of twos, and since the drawings don't hold for 2 frames, there's always constant movement in these characters and objects, no matter how subtle or over the top. And the results, as you can see, are a marvel to behold. Williams demonstrates immense patience and unprecedented detail with his traditional artwork. I mean, not every animator can say they drew the same hyper-detailed and shaded image a million fucking times. But the way he accomplishes the tiniest of intricate details and indications of movement all with paper and pencil is simply spellbinding. His cinematography is unlike anything you'll see in cinemas. His drawings are so perfectly on model from every possible 3D angle, and this creates the effect of one continuous long shot with shifting perspectives, angles, and POVs. This is something he did a lot in his career. The most impressive use of this technique before Prologue was the chase sequence in Thief and the Cobbler. Look at that, that's fucking beautiful. But now I think it's safe to say he's perfected it, and he made a fucking statement by completing a film that employed that technique the whole way through. Yeah, it's only 6 minutes, but look at all those frames, look at all those dead trees, man. They all gave their lives for this masterwork. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And you would have to be somewhat insane to even consider doing this. And as brilliant as the artistry is, the sound design is a whole other star on its own. Just listen to this crisp Foley art. After the battle reaches its end, a little girl runs away terrified of the violence she saw. She rushes to the comfort of an old woman, where the camera zooms in on her face, homaging to the German expressionist artist Kathy Kollwitz's self-portrait. Now this is especially interesting because Kollwitz created a series of grim artworks in the early 1900s under the title The Peasant War. The name refers to the German Peasants' War way back in 1525. A violent revolution in southern Germany. Peasants who had been treated as slaves took arms against feudal lords and the church. This could very well be referring as to what these men were fighting about. Or perhaps this was foreshadowing the development of a divide of classes in this Greek society. But alas, we shall never know for sure. Now, I said earlier that Williams's ambition when it came to his passion projects largely outweighed his mortal limitations. And while it definitely was one of his biggest setbacks, that uncompromising drive was also his greatest asset. The one thing that made him so unique and surreal to begin with. The fact that this guy aimed so high from such a young age and was able to complete even a fraction of what he's made is a monumental feat on its own. And listening to him talk about this film, you can hear the excitement, passion, and even self-awareness in his voice regarding the endeavor he's taken on.
The prologue is something I'm just completing now. This is an idea for a big film which I had when I was 15 years old,
And I thought, I wonder if I'll ever get good enough to do this. It's something that nobody's done. And something happened to me about 3 years ago. I don't know, with all this teaching, all this experience, is that it's like yogurt. It finally just went, and I'm able to do exactly what I can think of. And people say, what's this film about? And I say, well, I'll tell you the working title. And I say, it's called Will I Live to Finish This? And that I really hope I do, if we can stretch this out, because it's an enormous amount of work. And I'm into territory where people have tried to go before and haven't brought it off. I keep thinking animation is so much work, and you have to learn. That's why I was reluctant after my first film. That you have to learn so much, and I don't know if I really want to do just stuff that looks like cartoons, but they're drawings that walk and talk, and you can put them anywhere, and you can do anything. And it just seemed, oh, but it's going to be such a hard journey of learning how to do all this stuff, because I wanted the whole ball of wax. I mean, a lot of guys, very funny artists or very funny animators, they do one kind of thing, but I wanted the whole whammy, sort of artistically greedy or ambitious, anyway, if you want to call it. And that was my goal. I thought, it doesn't matter what I do, I've got to master this damn thing so I can really do anything I want. And I, fortunately, have achieved it while I'm still reasonably healthy and walking around.
Richard Williams was truly one of the greatest animators of all time, and Prologue encompasses everything Williams valued in the art form. Gritty realism, over-the-top comedy, delicate and careful movement, sweeping camera work, warping perspectives, and intense expressions. And since there's no spoken dialogue, Williams can let the animation breathe and unravel as it progresses. And that's what makes it his best film. It's something unmistakably him, and with no restrictions, no studio interference, or corporate tamperings whatsoever. It's pure art. And even though fate is a cruel mistress and was terrified of his limitless imagination, I'm forever grateful that he left behind an astounding visual legacy. One that will be studied and admired for centuries to come.
The reason I started animation was that I saw what you could do with it. If you were Rembrandt today, you wouldn't be able to resist animation. Instead of doing etchings, he'd be making stuff move. I would think. But it's a remarkable medium. You can do anything. And you can change it, you see. And if you're playing a chorus, if you're improvising on an instrument, you have to do it then, that's it. But with this stuff, you can just keep fixing it. You can improvise, you can plan it, you have total flexibility with animation.